From the jaguars and pumas of the Americas, to the tigers of Asia and the lions of Africa, wildcats can be found on almost every continent. However, domestic and feral cats have expanded this range further, becoming pests on many isolated islands which were once void of predators. The living Felidae can be divided into two subfamilies, Pantherinae and Felinae. Between them, they contain anywhere from 36 to 41 species, but we will cover 37 in this documentary. Feliformia, the suborder that contains the cats, as well as other cat-like carnivorans including hyenas and mongoose, likely split between 50.6 and 35 million years ago into several families. These families included the false saber-toothed cats, which, whilst not true cats, were still closely related to the rest of the feliforms. Around 10 million years later, the first fossil felid evolved, known as Proailurus. These cats lived in Eurasia during the late Oligocene and Miocene and were discovered in 1879. At first, the animal appears to be more like a mongoose or civet, but closer inspection of the animal's teeth confirm it is indeed a cat. Then, approximately 25 million years ago, cats almost completely disappeared from the fossil record in North America. This break, sometimes known as the cat gap, lasted for around 6.5 million years. There are many theorized causes for this absence, such as changes in climate or volcanic activity. Another theory is that cats were subject to a Van der Hamen cycle. Described in the late 1950s, these cycles were estimated to last for around 6 million years, and are influenced by a succession of different types of carnivore and ungulate types that matched each other before dying out to make way for the next type. Big or small, the cats share a variety of common characteristics. The first of these is their curved claws, which can be protracted when needed, but are otherwise safely protected by cutaneous sheaths. The only species that lacks these sheaths is the cheetah, as the claws are used for extra grip when running. Cats also have a tongue covered in horn-like papillae. As obligate carnivores, meaning they must eat meat to survive as it contains nutrients that cannot be gleaned from elsewhere, they use this raspy tongue to pull meat from bone and aid in grooming. Most species of cat are at least partially nocturnal, and they are aided in this lifestyle by the presence of a tapetum lucidum on the back of the eyeball. This layer of tissue makes their eyes around 6 times more sensitive to light than those of humans, and causes the distinctive shine of a cat's eyes. Another distinctive feature, especially of big cats, is their ability to roar. Only leopards, lions, tigers and jaguars can truly roar, although the loudest meows of the snow leopards often have a similar sound. These cats can roar due to an elongated and specially adapted larynx and hyoid apparatus. When air passes through the larynx from the lungs, the cartilage walls of the larynx vibrate and produce a roar. In the cloud forests of Southeast Asia live two very similar big cats. They are the most ancient cat species, diverged from other big cats for around 6 million years. These are the clouded leopards, two species separated by around 2 million years of evolution, but still nearly identical. The mainland clouded leopard is found from Nepal to Indochina, whilst the sunder-clouded leopard can only be found on the islands of Borneo and Sumatra. Clouded leopard populations are healthiest in Borneo, where tigers and leopards their usual competitors, are absent. Borneo also holds some incredibly rare black and pale clouded leopards. The Sumatran populations are much more abundant, but are more sparsely distributed due to competition with tigers. Their life in the trees means they are incredibly agile, and they are one of the only animals which can climb headfirst down tree trunks, thanks to specialised ankle bones. The cloud leopards cannot roar like other big cats, but also cannot purr. Instead, they growl, hiss and chuff to communicate. Compared to other big cats, the canine teeth of the clouded leopards are proportionally longer, and they can open their mouth to an impressive 100-degree gape, allowing them to feed on a range of large prey including wild boar and gibbons. Across the Pacific Ocean in South America lives the largest cat of the Western Hemisphere. Roaming across 18 countries, from Mexico to Argentina, the jaguar can grow up to 120 kilograms in weight. Sadly, jaguars have gone extinct from 50% of their historic range, and the largest populations can now be found in Brazil, particularly in the Pantanal. Historically, jaguars could even be found as far north as the southwestern United States, but there have been no viable breeding populations recorded here for nearly a century. The jaguar's name roughly means "he who kills with one leap," which is an accurate description of this powerful hunter. They have the strongest bite of any big cat, using its teeth to break through the thick hides of crocodiles and the shells of turtles. However, jaguars don't just go for these hard-to-eat prey, as they also take fish, birds, monkeys, capybaras, and deer. Another spotted cat, but this time found in Asia and Africa, is the leopard. However, at one point its range was much more extensive, and it's estimated that the leopards had lost 75% of their historic range by 2019. Unlike the jaguar, who has spots inside its rosettes, the leopard spots, by comparison, are quite simple. Currently, 8 subspecies are recognised across the leopard's range, the most widespread being the African leopard, which is native to most of sub-Saharan Africa. Other notable subspecies include the Amur leopard, found in the Russian Far East and northern China, and only around 175 are left in the wild. These cats are opportunistic and solitary animals, hunting prey from bugs to antelope. However, they are in fierce competition with lions and hyenas, so sometimes kills they do make are stored in trees, where the leopards are quite at home. More common in Asia, some melanistic leopards can be found. These cats are often referred to as black panthers, and are sometimes considered a separate species, if somewhat incorrectly. Another iconic African species, the lion, also has populations in Asia. This small population is in the Gir Forest National Park of Western India, and the lions here are the closest relatives of the West African lions. The rest of the lion's population could be found south of the Sahara in Africa. However, they were once found in Europe, but these populations have been extinct for at least 2,000 years. One of the most memorable features of a lion is the impressive mane of the male. These manes grow longer as the lion ages, growing up to 16 centimetres long. However, not all lions have manes, and in some parts of Africa, maneless lions are a common sight as heat loss has become a priority over fancy exhibitions. Lions are known as one of the only social cats, forming prides made of related females and their cubs. These prides will be defended by either a singular or small group of males. These males will defend the pride from any takeovers. As if a takeover attempt was to succeed, any cubs would immediately be at risk, as any new males will kill them to force lionesses to come back into heat, so they could become pregnant with their cubs. found in the mountains of Central and South Asia at altitudes of between 3,000 and 4,500 metres. The snow leopard spends its life in the freezing cold. They combat this chill with long hair on their sides and belly, and a long fluffy tail which can measure a metre long, that they can wrap around their body for added warmth. Their environment is almost always covered in a thick layer of snow, and their wide paws serve as natural snowshoes, distributing their weight over the soft snow. Despite their spots leading to them being called leopards, the snow leopard is genetically more closely related to tigers than to the true leopards. Whilst the snow leopards are found in barren mountain ranges, they are still a threat from human activity. With potentially as few as 4,000 left in the wild, the cats are threatened by poaching and climate change, as well as coming into conflict with human settlements. Their populations are so low that snow leopards rarely encounter one another across their 2 million square kilometre range. The only time you will see a group of snow leopards is when a female is raising her cubs, without assistance from the male, for around 18 months. The largest of the cats, tigers are native to Asia, from the freezing taiga of the Russian Far East to the tropical forests of Sumatra. The most abundant of the subspecies is the Bengal tiger of India, which accounts for around half of the total tiger population. When studying tigers, there is one feature about them that is incredibly helpful. Their stripes are as unique as human fingerprints and can be used to identify individuals throughout their lives. Due to their large size, sometimes reaching 300 kilograms in weight, not only do tigers perform an important role of controlling prey populations, but also the populations of other smaller predators, such as leopard, dhole and clouded leopards. They have had this effect for an incredibly long time, with it estimated that tigers have been around for about 2 million years. Sadly, despite being around for such a long time, this doesn't mean they are safe from human pressures. Over the last 150 years, their population has reduced by nearly 95%, with only around 5,000 tigers left in the wild. There is even more concern for the species when you consider that there are more tigers captive in the USA than can be found across their entire wild range, and sadly one subspecies, the South China tiger, only exists in captivity, with around 40 individuals left. All subspecies except for the largest, the Yama tiger, have decreasing populations in the wild. Cheetahs are very agile cats, with long legs and a slender frame adapted to chasing prey at high speeds. Their large nostrils, lungs and heart allow for highly efficient circulation, which supplies oxygen rapidly during a sprint. This highly adapted body means they are the world's fastest land animal, reaching speeds of 70 miles per hour. They can accelerate to such speeds in just over 3 seconds, which is about the same acceleration speed as a Porsche 911. However, their top speed can only be sustained for around 30 seconds. A flexible spine, harder foot pads and semi-retractable claws help them balance during sharp turns and increase their top speed. Unlike most cats, the cheetah's shoulder blades are not fixed to their collarbone, and their hip joints freely pivot to produce an exceptional stride length of 6 to 7 metres. Until around 20,000 years ago, cheetahs and their relatives had a worldwide distribution. That was until the Great Ice Age caused dramatic changes to the world's environment. By around 10,000 years ago, their populations had somewhat recovered, and cheetahs could be found across the entire African continent as well as into Asia as far east as India. However, these cats are not always impressive hunters. When first born, they weigh less than half a kilogram and are completely blind and helpless. For the first 6 to 8 weeks of their lives, they will remain in a secluded nest, which is regularly changed to reduce the chance they are discovered by predators. It won't be until they are around a year old that they will join their mother on hunts. Until then, siblings play together in trees, building strength and agility and honing the skills they will one day use as hunters. Once they reach sexual maturity, females will often leave the group and will from then on live relatively solitary lives. However, the male siblings often remain together, forming groups known as coalitions. These coalitions often travel hundreds of miles, often being displaced by stronger groups. These coalitions can also be artificially formed by conservationists, with non-related males when the cubs are orphaned. Once the group is old enough for release, they will often stay together throughout their lives. Sometimes known as the desert lynx, Caracals are more closely related to the serval and African golden cat than to any of the true lynxes. Their name roughly translates to black ear, and it is easy to see why with the black tufts of fur projected from their ear tips. These extraordinary ears contain over 20 muscles, which they can swivel around to detect the sounds of prey. Their ear tufts may even perform a role in enhancing sounds going into their ears, or be used to communicate with other caracals. Like the cheetah, caracals are incredibly agile, and whilst not fast, only reaching speeds of around 50 miles per hour, they can also leap up to 4 meters into the air to catch their prey. They live in deserts, forests and savannas across Africa, the Middle East and Central Asia. They are opportunistic predators, going after any prey they can find, including birds, mongoose and even small monkeys and gazelles. The caracal primarily hunts at night, but sometimes they take advantage of daylight hunting in cooler protected areas, and daytime activity is often increased in winter. One of the closest relatives of the caracal is the African golden cat. Despite their striking resemblance to the Asiatic golden cat, the two are not related, and are suspected to be the result of millions of years of convergent evolution. Sadly, the species is poorly known, as it is very rarely observed in the wild. Their favourite moist forests and shy nature mean that studying the cats is incredibly difficult. They are endemic to the tropical forests of equatorial Africa, but there is a significant gap between known populations, with one population occurring in the western region, but being absent from Togo and Benin before the cats reappear in the Cameroon and Congo. The species is highly dependent on undisturbed forest, but are particularly fussy when it comes to other types of habitats they can be found in, also being found in montane, bamboo, coastal and secondary forests, as well as wooded savanna. They also seem to adapt well to sustainably logged areas, potentially due to the abundance of rodents, which make up a large portion of their diet in these habitats. Despite their name, not all Asian golden cats are golden. With their coat ranging from a reddish gold to grey and black. The species is native to the rainforests and mountain regions of Southeast Asia, and is renowned for being solitary and elusive. The cat is also known as the Timmons cat or rock cat, and despite weighing no more than 16 kilograms, its diet consists of a range of small mammals, birds, reptiles, and even prey much larger than itself, such as buffalo calves, deer fawns, and small muntjacs. It kills these larger prey items with a strong bite to the neck. Cats are so adaptable that they have even become a common sight in human homes, with around 45.3 million households in the USA alone keeping them as pets. Descended from a subspecies of African wildcat, the domestic cat now has at least 45 breeds, from the giant Maine Coon to the tiny Singapura. However, domestic cats have retained many of their wild characteristics, still being obligate carnivores and retaining much of their independent nature. The cats also don't show the infantilization effect seen in dogs, showing the difference in the relationship between humans and cats to that of human and dogs. It is likely that cats have been domesticated for thousands of years, with the first evidence of cat domestication being in the Fertile Crescent around 10,000 years ago. There may have been a separate instance of cat domestication in China around 5,000 years ago, with the leopard cat, but this domestication didn't seem to last as our modern-day house cats are not related to wild leopard cats. Cat domestications were likely caused by the plentiful rodent populations around human settlements, as wildcats were drawn towards the easy access to food. Domestic cats also pose a threat to some wildcat species. One of these major casualties is the European wildcat. By interbreeding with the domestic cats, the bloodline of the European wildcat is under threat. A pureblood wildcat has longer legs, a larger and flatter head, and a relatively short tail ending with a rounded tip when compared to domestic cats. The species can be found from Scotland through into continental Europe and Western Asia, with the subpopulation found in Scotland being referred to as the Scottish wildcat, and potentially having as few as 115 individuals left in the wild. When compared to a domestic cat, the jungle cat is larger and lankier. They are also known as the swamp cat or reed cat, a far more appropriate name for a cat that does not often spend its time in dense jungle. The jungle cat is found throughout the Middle East and Asia, and their fur varies in colour from reddish or sandy brown to tawny grey. Most current studies suggest that there are 3 subspecies. One spreads from Egypt east to Afghanistan, the second spreads from Afghanistan to India and Sri Lanka, and the third is found only in Southeast Asia, possibly spreading into China. Within their range in Pakistan and India, some cats have been found to be melanistic. Whilst its European populations seem to be decreasing, and have been since the 1960s, the cats are common in the Indian subcontinent, including in Nepal, where the population exceeds 10,000 individuals, as the cats have mastered life in human settlements, including being found in old buildings and college campuses. Native to Africa and the Middle East, the African wildcat is in many ways like the European wildcat, but often has shorter fur to cope with the warmer climates in which it lives. They are also known as the desert cat, often being found in steppes, savannas and bushland. They diverged from other closely related species around 131,000 years ago, and around 10,000 years ago were domesticated in the Middle East, and became the ancestors of our domestic house cat. This relation to our domestic cats is so close that it is believed to be possible for the two to interbreed, and to the untrained eye, they could be easily mistaken for a domestic cat. The smallest cat in Africa, weighing only a couple of kilograms, the black-footed cat is still the family's most successful hunter. Their name comes from the black fur on the soles of their feet, which extends from the toes to the heel. Around 60% of their hunts end in success, making it second only to the African wild dog. These tiny cats will ambush a variety of prey, including small birds, rodents, and reptiles. However, their hunting success doesn't save them from other pressures, with less than 10,000 mature individuals making it possibly the rarest cat in Africa. The second smallest member of the cat family, the sand cat, is found from North Africa to Southwest Asia. Within their range they endure extreme temperatures, from 58 degrees Celsius in the shade, dropping to below freezing at night, with winter temperatures in its range sometimes dropping to minus 25 degrees Celsius. To combat the coldest winters, their winter coat is incredibly dense, and the outer coat may be up to 6 centimetres with a soft woolly undercoat. However, the sand cat really comes into its own in the hot deserts, being the only felid to be primarily found here. The inside of its ear is covered with a thick layer of white hair, which prevents sand getting trapped in the ear during sandstorms. It also has hairy feet, which forms a barrier protecting the pads from being burnt by the hot sand that travels long distances when hunting. They primarily feed on small sand-dwelling rodents, such as spiny mice, gerds and jerboas, and can detect these prey items under the sand, digging them out rapidly when found. The cats survive entirely without freestanding water, obtaining most of the moisture it needs from its prey. But when the weather gets too hot even for these desert cats, they retreat underground into insulated burrows. Traditionally called the Chinese desert cat, the mountain cat is endemic to China, occurring only in the high elevation Qinghai-Tibet Plateau. In the Tibetan highlands, the cat may also be referred to as the grass cat, with its fur closely matching the colour of dry grass. The species preys mainly on rodents, but they will also take pikas and birds if the opportunity arises. In the highlands, the weather can be harsh, varying from extreme heat to extreme cold, and the environment is often dry and windy. Its fur is greyish in winter, but dark brown in summer, and its sides are marked with faint brown horizontal lines. Their threatened status is the result of secondary poisoning, as campaigns to control populations of voles, moles and pikas can cause the cats to also be poisoned. A generalist predator, the jaguarundi is the most widely distributed small felid in the Western Hemisphere. They have a much broader vocal repertoire than other cats, with at least 13 different calls, which can be used to communicate with other cats, mark their territory, and find a mate. Recent genetic analysis has shown that the jaguarundi is a close relative of the puma, despite having diverged from each other between 4 and 7 million years ago, which means many recent studies referred to the genus of the jaguarundi as puma. Like the much larger puma, the jaguarundi is native to the Americas, living in lowland areas including in scrublands, swamps and forests. However, their elongated bodies and flattened heads mean that the jaguarundi is often mistaken for an otter or a weasel, hence the animals sometimes being called otter cats. With 2 subspecies found from Texas to northern Argentina, the ocelot's large range is partly thanks to their capability as generalist carnivores. Whilst most of their prey is small, with roughly 90% of their prey weighing under a kilogram, some items are huge in comparison, with some prey weighing over 15 kilograms. There have even been reports of ocelots, along with jaguars and pumas, consuming wild rice and other plant matter, which is believed to help them digest bones and other coarse material. The ocelot inhabits a wide variety of different habitats, but is most found in regions of dense evergreen forests and those near fresh water. Unsurprisingly from this information, the ocelot is a good swimmer and an excellent climber. The ocelot has disproportionately large paws, which help them maneuver through the environment. Also known as the northern tiger cat, the oncilla is one of the smallest South American cats, as well as being potentially the least studied. The cats are endemic to Central American countries such as Costa Rica and Panama, hunting rodents, lizards, birds, invertebrates, and occasionally tree frogs. In the most heavily forested areas of its range, there have been reports of some melanistic individuals. One of the main differences between the northern and southern tiger cats are the rings on their tail, with the northern species having less conspicuous rings, as well as being lighter built than the southern species. Until recently, the southern tiger cat was included within the same species as the oncilla, and it is likely one of the southern species populations is also separate. Both species are part of the ocelot lineage, which is one of the youngest of all cat lineages. Like the oncilla, the southern tiger cat is similar in size and shape to a slender house cat. The colo-colo or pampas cat has a wide distribution over large swathes of South America, from Ecuador to Brazil and Argentina. As its name suggests, the cat is typically associated with pampas, but they can also be found in forests and semi-arid cold deserts. They can either be diurnal or nocturnal, depending on their location within their wider range, and often feed on small mammals as well as birds and reptiles. In Patagonia, The pampas cat may even prey on penguin nests for eggs and chicks. Also known as the Guna, the cod is native to much of Chile and parts of Argentina. The cat inhabits forested ravines with streams and near vertical forested strips along the coast. The cod is an excellent climber, but they are not known to hunt in trees, despite birds making up part of their diet alongside rodents, reptiles and insects. The tree ocelot, better known as the margay, does most of its hunting above the ground, taking advantage of arboreal and nocturnal prey. The margay is also unusual as it has been proven to commonly eat fruit as part of its diet. Their distribution is closely tied to primary forest, being found in the lowlands of North Mexico to South America. Living up to their name, the margay rests in trees during the day, being able to jump 8 feet into the air to get to safety fast. Preferring the dense forests of Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil, Chile, Paraguay and Uruguay, the Geoffroy's cat is about the size of a large house cat, and over 500,000 can be found across their range. Opportunistic predators, most of its prey include introduced brown hares and small rodents, but it may also include aquatic and semi-aquatic prey, as well as birds. In southern Brazil, the Geoffroy's cat is also known to hybridize with the southern tiger cat. Therefore, any population monitoring is difficult, as hybrid individuals are easily mistaken for purebreds. Almost twice the size of a domestic cat, the Andean mountain cat is found in the Andean Mountains and northern Patagonia. They are perfectly adapted to the harsh climates of this region, with long thick fur and a long bushy tail. Their fur is significantly darker than the pampas cat, with which it shares its range, and its tail is considerably longer than the pampas cat's, almost reaching 1/2 metre long. It is believed that fewer than 2,500 mature individuals are left in the wild, classifying it as endangered on the IUCN Red List. Currently, their diet is mostly made up of mountain viscacha. However, before their local extinction, mountain chinchillas were the more likely prey of mountain cats. Native to Central and Southern Africa, the serval's honey-coloured coat is covered in a beautiful pattern of spots. The spots help them blend in with the shadows of the savanna grasses and forest trees, hiding from predators such as hyenas, wild dogs and leopards. The serval is an ambush predator, with excellent hearing to detect rodents, small reptiles and birds. Whilst the cats are widespread from South Africa to Mali and Niger, there is a single isolated population on the Mediterranean, located in Morocco, Algeria and Tunisia. This critically endangered population is incredibly isolated and, if it still exists, contains fewer than 250 mature individuals. The species has more recently been hybridized with domestic cats, producing the popular savanna cat. The breed was developed in the late 20th century by crossing a male serval with a Siamese domestic cat. The litter contained a single kitten, who was subsequently named Savannah and later bred with a Turkish Angora in 1989. Just 7 years later, the first breed standard was written, and by 2001, the Savannah cat was accepted as a registered breed. There are 4 living species of lynx: the Eurasian, Canadian and Iberian lynxes, as well as the bobcat. The largest of these species is the Eurasian lynx, weighing up to 36 kilograms. The species is found from the French-Swiss border to the Russian Far East, largely in forests. Luckily, a lynx's winter fur is dense and soft, with hairs measuring up to 10 centimetres long. Until recently, the Iberian lynx was the world's most endangered feline, but the population has now recovered to just over 1,000 individuals. The species is mainly found in the mountain scrublands of southern Spain, with smaller populations found in Portugal. They feed primarily on European rabbits, which make up over 80% of their diet. The bobcat, also known as the bay lynx, is only the size of a large house cat, weighing a maximum of 12 kilograms. They are primarily found in the continental United States, but their range can also spread into Mexico. Thousands of bobcats are being harvested annually in the United States for the commercial fur trade, but population numbers are still steadily in their hundreds of thousands. Whilst like the bobcat in appearance, the Canada lynx has much longer legs and wider feet, and they can grow to weigh up to 17 kilograms. They are found mainly in the boreal forests of Canada, but the species' range heavily coincides with that of the snowshoe hare in the United States. Some researchers believe that the Nowell, also known as the Pallas's cat, is the oldest living cat species, with the species dating back as far as 10 million years. The Pallas's cat is covered in thick, long fur, but this fur can be twice as long on their stomach to prevent the cat getting cold from having its stomach touching the freezing ground of the Central Asian steppes it calls home. Their flat faces and small rounded ears make them closely resemble domestic Persian cats, and scientists first believed that they were the wild relatives of these domestic cats. Living in incredibly open and harsh environments, these small ears mean they can peer over rocks while keeping their ears almost perfectly hidden. When scared or excited, instead of a typical call of a cat, the Pallas's cat produces a yelp more like that of a small dog than that of any other cat. Another difference between these alpine predators and other cats is their pupils. Most cats have slit-like pupils, but those of the Pallas's cat are rounded. Once believed to be a close relative of the clouded leopard, the marbled cat is more closely related to the Asiatic golden cat and Borneo bay cat. They were not photographed until 1994, when a camera trap in Thailand caught an image of the animal. They are extremely dependent on forest, preferring remote moist forests far from the forest edge. The marbled cat is an excellent climber, being capable of descending headfirst down tree trunks. However, whilst its adeptness in the trees caused researchers to first believe that the cats were almost entirely arboreal, the truth seems to be that most of their time is spent on the ground. Despite its small size, weighing just a few kilograms, the marbled cat shares many similarities with the much larger clouded leopards. Their broad feet and blotched coat pattern, emphasising their resemblance to these larger cats, which could explain the original belief the two were related. The leopard cat has recently been split into two species. The mainland leopard cat inhabits mainland Asia and Japan, whilst the Sunda leopard cat inhabits many of the Indonesian islands, as well as the Philippines and possibly the Malay Peninsula. They are found in a variety of habitats, from tropical forest to scrub, and can even be found in agricultural plantations, such as those used for palm oil or rubber. The cats are typically solitary, often being active either at night or very early in the morning and late in the evening. It favours prey such as rats and mice, which is why the leopard cats fare so well in agricultural habitats where this type of prey is abundant. However, their diet also includes hares, birds, reptiles, amphibians, fish and insects. Due to their taste for rodents, they appear to be more tolerant of habitat alteration and deforestation than many other Asian felids. Considered to be Southeast Asia's most threatened small felid, the endangered flat-headed cat earns its name from its flattened forehead. They are only around the size of a domestic cat, so are extremely elusive. The cats are heavily associated with wetlands and waterways, having long and narrow feet and webbed toes, perfect for hunting their primary food source of fish. The cat's range spreads from peninsular Malaysia to Borneo and Sumatra, and there are some speculations that the cat may be found as far north as Thailand. Native to Southeast Asia and the Indian subcontinent, including Sri Lanka, the fishing cat inhabits areas of wetland, feasting on fish, frogs and crustaceans. They are highly adapted to a life in and around the water. Webbed paws help them swim and walk in muddy wetlands without sinking, and their dense underlayer of fur keeps them warm whilst in the water. These cats fish by tapping the water's surface, mimicking an insect, which lures fish to the surface and within reach of their waiting paws. They have a total of 32 muscles in their ears, meaning they can rotate their ears a staggering 180 degrees, which allows them to hear in several directions without even turning their head. One of the smallest cat species, and being the confirmed smallest in Asia, rusty spotty cats often weigh less than a kilogram. They get their name from the red to brown colouring, and their spots are perfect for camouflaging them into their natural habitat. Native to the forests and grasslands of India, Sri Lanka and Nepal, these tiny predators hunt small mammals, birds and insects. Whilst they primarily hunt on the ground, they are perfectly at home in the trees, often escaping to the protection of the canopy when at risk from larger predators. These tiny cats rarely see each other, living solitary lives and only really seeing other individuals during the mating season. They communicate with other cats using scent markings and vocalizations. The puma is known by several names, including the cougar, catamount, Florida panther or mountain lion. This partially could be due to their wide range, which spans 22 countries from southern Alaska to the tip of Tierra del Fuego at the southernmost point of South America. Their wide distribution is in part thanks to their adaptability across habitats, with the pumas happily inhabiting forests, high mountains, deserts and even urban jungles. Despite rivaling the size of jaguars, the puma still faces several threats to their populations. The most significant cause of puma deaths is hunting, which accounts for nearly half of all adult deaths. On the other hand, kittens are frequently taken by wolves and killed. However, the wolves rarely eat the kittens, suggesting the target wolves have for them could be due to an attempt to reduce competition. The pumas of Patagonia are bolder than their northern counterparts, potentially because they have been the top predators of this region for 10,000 years. They are unfearful of humans, taking thousands of sheep a year. As a result, hundreds or even thousands of pumas are killed by farmers, even if hunting pumas is illegal on the Chilean side of the Andes. There is still a bounty on them in Argentina.